Right now, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, a ship the length of 4 football fields is crossing open water. Inside its hull, in refrigerated chambers held at precisely -18 degrees Celsius, are 12,000 tons of frozen shrimp caught in the Gulf of Thailand. In a warehouse outside Rotterdam, a temperature sensor has triggered an alarm. Humidity inside cold cell 7 rose by 3%. A technician has 11 minutes to respond before a stack of insulin vials begins to degrade. In a truck moving through the Sonoran Desert at 2 in the morning, a small electric pump is working continuously to hold the trailer at 4 degrees Celsius, while the outside air sits at 41. If that pump fails, the lettuce in the back is worthless before sunrise. None of this is unusual. All of it is happening right now, simultaneously, across every ocean and every continent. And almost no one who benefits from it knows it exists. This is the cold chain. One of the most fragile, most energy-hungry, most consequential systems in the modern world. And it is under threat in ways that most people have never been told about. The cold chain is not a company, not an agency, not something you can point to on a map. It is a continuously maintained condition, a promise that temperature will not break. An invisible thread of refrigeration connecting the moment food is harvested, or a drug is manufactured to the moment it reaches you, and it must never snap. It spans refrigerated fields after harvest, cooling facilities at ports, temperature-controlled warehouses in every major city, refrigerated trucks running around the clock on every continent, the glass-fronted cases at your supermarket, the pharmaceutical fridges at your clinic. Every link must hold its temperature at all times. If one fails, if a container ship's unit breaks, if a warehouse loses power, if a truck's cooling gives out in the desert, the product inside degrades, often with no visible sign. A ruined vaccine looks exactly like a good one. A contaminated piece of meat looks fresh. The failure is invisible until it kills someone. How did we get here? For most of human history, cold was harvested from nature. In 19th century New England, entire industries cut ice from frozen lakes in winter, packed it in sawdust, and shipped it to warmer climates. Boston merchant Frederick Tudor built a global business shipping ice to India and the Caribbean. It sounds absurd, but it worked, barely, and it planted a seed. Cold could be manufactured, transported, and sold. Then came mechanical refrigeration. By the 1870s, refrigerated rail cars were moving beef from Chicago slaughterhouses to East Coast cities. By the 1880s, refrigerated ships were carrying beef from Argentina and mutton from New Zealand to Britain, the first true international cold chain, spanning oceans, keeping perishables intact across weeks of travel. Before this, diet was geography. You ate what grew near you. In the season it grew. Your milk turned in hours. The idea of eating strawberries in December was incomprehensible to most people. Mechanical refrigeration destroyed that constraint entirely. Today, the scale is staggering. Global refrigerated warehouses exceed 600 million square meters of floor space. Cold chain logistics move over 1 billion tons of temperature-sensitive cargo annually. The pharmaceutical cold chain alone is worth over $300 billion per year, carrying vaccines, insulin, cancer drugs, and biologics that cannot warm even briefly without becoming dangerous. All of it runs on electricity or diesel, continuously, without pause, night and day. Now the story turns. Because the cold chain faces threats that are structural, accelerating, and almost entirely absent from public conversation. The first is refrigerant. Every refrigeration system uses a working fluid, a chemical cycling between liquid and gas, absorbing heat. For decades, the dominant refrigerants were hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs. They don't damage the ozone layer, but they are extraordinarily potent greenhouse gases, many with a global warming potential thousands of times greater than carbon dioxide. A small refrigeration leak can release a climate impact equivalent to tons of CO2. The 2016 Kigali Amendment committed most nations to phasing down HFCs. Climate win. But the entire existing global fleet refrigerated trucks, ships, warehouses, supermarket cases is built around HFC technology. Replacement refrigerants operate at different pressures and require new hardware. In wealthy countries, the transition is underway. In the developing world, it has barely started. The result is a dangerous gap where cold chain capacity could shrink precisely when demand is growing fastest. The second threat is power grid fragility. A refrigerated warehouse that loses power doesn't slowly degrade over days. It has hours before temperatures rise to the point of total product loss. A large pharmaceutical cold store might hold hundreds of millions of dollars of vaccines and biologics. A power outage of more than a few hours, without working backup generation, destroys all of it. In 2021, the winter storm that hit Texas caused grid failures lasting days. Temperature-sensitive drugs, insulin, vaccines, biologics were lost across the state. Millions of dollars of frozen food was destroyed as backup generators ran out of fuel. Texas was a warning. Climate change is increasing the frequency and severity of extreme weather events, each capable of disrupting power infrastructure. And many of the world's most critical cold chain hubs sit in coastal cities directly exposed to these risks. Miami, Rotterdam, Singapore, Mumbai, Shanghai. If their grids fail for extended periods, the consequences ripple across continents. The third threat is the climate itself, not just as a disruptor, but as a direct physical adversary. As global temperatures rise, the ambient temperature refrigeration systems must work against increases. A refrigerated truck in 40 degrees Celsius desert heat works its compressor far harder than the same truck in temperate conditions. Higher ambient temperatures reduce efficiency, increase energy consumption, and accelerate equipment wear across the entire system. This creates a feedback loop of near-perfect cruelty. The cold chain contributes to climate change through its energy consumption and refrigerant emissions, and climate change then makes the cold chain less efficient, requiring more energy, contributing further to climate change. The system is warming the planet it needs to keep cool. The fourth threat is the gap that already exists, vast, deadly, and growing. The Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that between 30 and 50% of all food produced globally is lost to spoilage. The majority happens in developing countries where the cold chain is absent or inadequate. In sub-Saharan Africa, post-harvest losses of fruits and vegetables can exceed 40%. This is not a natural feature of agriculture. It is a cold chain problem, a missing infrastructure problem. The pharmaceutical gap is worse. The World Health Organization estimates that roughly half of all vaccines globally are wasted annually, the leading cause being cold chain failure. A vaccine allowed to warm above its required temperature looks identical to an effective one. A nurse administering a heat-damaged dose has no way of knowing without a monitoring system. This is why immunization programs in parts of the world achieve far lower coverage than official numbers suggest. The vaccines reach the clinic on paper. They fail at the point of administration because the chain broke somewhere along the way. The COVID-19 pandemic tore this reality into the open. The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine required storage at -70 degrees Celsius, far colder than the standard pharmaceutical cold chain is designed to hold. Wealthy countries rushed to acquire ultra-cold freezers. Developing countries without the infrastructure or power reliability faced a starker reality. They received vaccines they could not store, or they received nothing at all. The system bent under the pressure. But it stripped away the comfortable assumption that cold chain infrastructure was solved, universal, and dependable. It was none of those things. The global cold chain accounts for somewhere between 15 and 20% of global electricity consumption. It generates roughly 2% of all human carbon dioxide emissions annually, comparable to the entire aviation industry. This is the system's permanent structural price, paid every day regardless of whether anything goes wrong. Think about what you ate in the last 24 hours. The fish processed in Vietnam, the yogurt from a refrigerated dairy chain, the berries grown in Chile and shipped out of season, the antibiotic kept at a specific temperature through every leg of its journey to your medicine cabinet. None of this happens through magic. Every single product traveled through a system of refrigeration requiring electricity, equipment, logistics coordination, and the continuous, unbroken maintenance of a specific temperature. A system built over more than a century, operated by hundreds of thousands of companies, facing threats from climate, energy transition, and infrastructure inadequacy, almost entirely invisible to the people who depend on it every day. The cold chain is the invisible architecture of the world you inhabit. It is the reason your diet is not limited to what grows within a day's walk of your home. It is the reason the vaccine in your child's arm was still effective after traveling from a factory in Belgium to a clinic in your city. It is the reason food markets overflow with produce from every corner of the world in every season. And it is fragile in ways that matter enormously. The strawberry arrives fresh, the vaccine is still cold, the fish is still firm. Until the day it isn't. And on that day, very few people will know why.
Thanks for watching Macro Explainer. Subscribe for more clear breakdowns.